Certainly. Here's section 1 of the story. We were tried for galactic war crimes. Our response? Laughter, structured as a standalone narrative piece with a strong introduction to characters and conflict, limited to 1,500 words. We didn't think we were war criminals. At least, not at first. Captain Rhea Morgan stood with her arms crossed, shoulder brushed with synthetic gold threading that glittered under the tribunal lights. Her crew, a ragtag team of explorers, diplomats, and one very unqualified cultural attaché, flanked her like mismatched chess pieces, dressed in pressed uniforms that didn't quite hide their confusion. The Galactic Tribunal of Sentient Species, 4 stories tall, glimmering in obsidian and bathed in a soft ultraviolet glow, was less a courtroom and more a cathedral of judgment. The ceiling shifted with projections of galactic maps, battle footage, and what could only be described as a suspicious number of Earth memes. We are gathered, intoned the High Arbiter, a crustaceous being with translucent blue mandibles and a voice like crushed ice, to deliberate the crimes of species designate 3-4b, known colloquially as humans. Rhea blinked twice and shifted her weight, but said nothing. She knew better than to interrupt alien ritualism, especially one that started with a 30-minute gong performance by Sentient Moss. The first charge was read in solemn tones by a serried delegate, whose triple-pupiled eyes were narrowed in what humans might call disgust. Unrestricted cultural pollution. A holoscreen flared to life, displaying footage of an alien child in a distant star system doing a TikTok dance. The child was covered in iridescent scales, but unmistakably flossed to a track from 21st century Earth. This juvenile of the Vanos species has since developed repetitive neurological tics. Your species' transmissions of digital ephemera have disrupted multiple developing cognitive networks. Explain. Rhea's first officer, Lieutenant Jonas Park, leaned toward her and muttered, "Should I mention the cat filters?" "No," she hissed. "Absolutely not." The tribunal watched in silence as more clips flashed. Alien civilizations trying to recreate reality shows, misinterpreting sarcasm as divine law, and whole species abandoning centuries of religious balance for influencer marketing. There was a particularly damning video of a warlike species, the Brune, mistaking WWE footage for genuine Earth politics, that had led to a minor skirmish in the Delta systems. "It's not our fault they thought Vince McMahon was a world leader," Jonas whispered. "Quiet," Rhea snapped, even though her lips twitched. The second charge was more serious. A brooding, feathered being from the Soren Confederacy floated forward, its long talons clasped in ceremonial chains. "You interfered with the Galactic Reconciliation Accords," it said, voice echoing from several mouths at once. "Your delegation attended the peace talks. You brought alcohol." There was a pause. Every non-human present visibly stiffened. "It was champagne," Rhea offered, a symbol of celebration. "You brought a volatile chemical compound that lowers inhibition, enhances aggression, and was served in flutes. Do you know what happened?" She did. The footage played anyway. An escalating diplomatic argument between 2 ancient rival empires devolving into a dance-off and, later, small-scale orbital bombardment. Apparently, shots had multiple meanings. "We apologize for that one," Jonas offered sheepishly. "Sent fruit baskets." "You sent bombs shaped like fruit," the Arbiter growled. "Cultural misunderstanding," Rhea said firmly, but her voice lacked conviction. The tribunal rustled, clicked, buzzed, 1,000 languages murmuring in disapproval. One member, a gas-based being from Androvar 6, visibly decompressed in frustration. The third charge was unexpected. Violation of narrative sanctity. At this, Rhea squinted. "Come again." "You have spread stories," said the representative of the archivists, a race of crystalline historians. "Fictional constructs with protagonists who defy causality, narratives that reward violence, subvert moral logic, or present paradoxes without resolution. These tales spread like spores, infecting entire systems." On cue, a visual, A young alien in a scholar's robe arguing that life is meaningless because nothing matters in Rick and Morty. Jonas couldn't help it. He laughed, loudly. The echo bounced off the chamber walls. A dozen eyes, real and simulated, turned to him. "Sorry," he said, straightening. "It's just war crimes. For bad storytelling." The crystalline archivist glared, or at least refracted light in an aggressive way. "They're not bad stories," Rhea said, trying to salvage it. "They're human stories. Messy, honest, funny. They reflect a deeply unstable species," the archivist interrupted. Another voice rose, deeper, colder. "The Arbiter again. Humans. You broadcast your chaos across the stars. You embedded yourselves into galactic frequencies with no permission. You terraformed moons with no regard for their native microbiomes. You introduced sentient species to capitalism." Now, Jonas did cough. "Okay, fair on that one." The Arbiter extended a tendril toward them. "Do you understand the scope of your crimes?" Rhea hesitated. Behind her, the rest of the crew stood in frozen silence. Dr. Kessler, face blank, Ahmed, the engineer, wringing his gloves, and Dahlia, the cultural attaché, who looked as though she might be sick. "We do," Rhea said finally. "Then how do you plead?" She took a breath, straightened, thought of all the explanations, defenses, excuses, the cultural relativism arguments she'd practiced. But instead, she turned slightly toward Jonas, who was already shaking with suppressed laughter. Then she smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Guilty," she said. Obviously, there was a beat of silence. "Would you care to elaborate?" Rhea nodded. "Of course. We did all that. Probably more. Half of it we didn't even know was illegal. Some of it was miscalculated. A lot of it was just us being who we are, curious, loud, occasionally stupid, often reckless. But we're criminals." She looked around the chamber, raising her voice. "You act like we came here with weapons drawn and bombs primed. We came in peace. We just didn't know what the hell we were doing." Another pause. "We tried. We really did. But maybe we weren't ready. Or maybe you weren't ready for us." Gasps. Clicking mandibles. An alarmed squelch. "You dare mock this court?" the Arbiter thundered. "Not mocking," Rhea replied, now stepping forward. "Just laughing. Because the idea that humanity, the species that once believed dinosaurs and humans lived together, could orchestrate intergalactic psychological warfare? That's hilarious." Jonas cracked up. Even Ahmed snorted. "You're not wrong," Dahlia murmured, dazed. Rhea went on. "Look, we're a mess. But we're not malevolent. You say we corrupted your people with our culture? Maybe your culture was too fragile. Or maybe, just maybe, we help you loosen your collective star sticks." That did it. A small ripple of laughter. Real, hesitant, but present from somewhere in the back. The tribunal tried to maintain order, but the damage was done. The seeds of doubt and absurdity had been planted. "You will be sentenced," the Arbiter warned, but Rhea only shrugged. "Fine. Do your worst. Put us in space jail. Exile us to a dead moon. Just don't ask us to apologize for being human." "Certainly. Here's section 2 of the story. We were tried for galactic war crimes." Our response? Laughter, continuing the narrative with deepened character dynamics and plot tension under 1,500 words. They didn't put them in chains. That was almost worse. Instead, the tribunal's verdict was suspension, not of freedom, but of purpose. The Odyssey Dawn, humanity's first diplomatic vessel to make it past the Centauri barrier, was impounded and tethered in orbit over the neutral moon of Orelise 5. The crew was confined to the surface, placed under cultural observation, as if they were a roaming art installation that needed analysis before being deemed safe again. Rhea Morgan sat cross-legged outside the designated human compound, plucking blades of bioluminescent grass. The damn stuff hummed when torn. Somewhere behind her, Jonas Park was trying to rig their comms unit to pick up local broadcasts, mostly to find out if anyone in the galaxy was laughing with them or planning their vaporization. "How long are we stuck here?" he asked, cradling a glowing wire in his mouth as he twisted a connector. "They said indefinite cultural detainment," Rhea replied, "which is tribunal speak for until you learn your lesson or someone forgets you exist. He spat out the wire. We're humanity's biggest embarrassment and greatest accomplishment all at once. Sounds about right. Inside the Habitat Dome, Dahlia paced, tapping notes into a data pad with more fervor than sense. Her job, cultural attaché, self-appointed, had gone from diplomatic pleasantry to existential burden in a matter of days. She now spent her hours cataloging every human cultural artifact that had gone viral beyond Earth's orbit. "We have a real problem," she announced as she burst outside. "Our memes are mutating." Rhea raised an eyebrow. "Is that medical or metaphorical?" "Both, technically. Some species can't process irony as non-literal. They're reconstructing our jokes as creeds. There's a planet where Shrek is now a fertility god." Jonas nodded solemnly. "He is love. He is life." "Stop." Ahmed, their engineer, emerged from the rear structure holding a cracked diagnostic tablet. He was covered in ash and looked far too cheerful for someone who'd just spent 6 hours arguing with a fusion reactor that powered the coffee dispenser. So, he began brightly. "Anyone else notice the surveillance drones have increased?" "Just a few," Dahlia muttered. 17, he corrected. "For our cloaked." "Poorly." Rhea sighed. "Great. They're watching us to see what other galactic taboos will break." The crew fell into a lull, the kind that settles not from peace but from too much uncertainty. Then, on the 6th day, their peace was broken. A delegation arrived, not from a tribunal, but from Itsiri. They landed without fanfare. A sleek, crescent-shaped vessel touched down beyond the ridge. From it emerged a single figure, tall, plated in carapace that shimmered like frostbitten jade. Rhea recognized him immediately. Ambassador Zell, the same Tsiri who had read the charges against them. His presence wasn't a courtesy. It was a warning. He did not wait for an invitation. He strode directly into the human camp and regarded the crew with a stillness that made even Jonas shut up. "I come not as judge," Zell said in perfect Earth standard, "but as observer. You are to undergo evaluation. Behavioral, social, linguistic." Rhea stood slowly. "You want to hang out with us?" "Hang out is an imprecise term," he said. "I will immerse. You will behave as you normally do. The tribunal wishes to know whether your influence is a virus or a symbiote." That last word hung heavy. They had no choice but to comply. And so Zell stayed. He watched them argue over dinner rations. He observed Jonas's attempt to repair a VR entertainment module that ended with him accidentally broadcasting Brooklyn Nine-Nine to a passing freighter. He watched as Ahmed and Dahlia taught alien poetry structures to a colony of local crystal beetles. He observed Rhea staring into the Orly sky at night, whispering audio logs into a recorder no one else knew she carried. At first, he said nothing, just took notes. Then something shifted. On the 10th day, he asked a question. "What is the purpose of sitcom?" They were sitting around a makeshift fire pit. Dahlia blinked. "Sitcom. You simulate dysfunction, conflict, repetition. It comforts." "What?" Jonas grinned. "Because real life is chaos, and sitcoms give us chaos with a laugh track. That seems contradictory. So is being alive." Zell tilted his head, mandibles twitching slightly. The next day, he asked for a copy of The Office. Rhea provided it with a straight face. 2 days later, he began quoting it. By the 3rd week, the unexpected happened. Zell laughed. It wasn't a sound meant for human ears, more like the snapping of icicles and the chirp of reversed audio. But it was unmistakable. He laughed at a poorly timed joke Jonas made about interstellar trade deficits. Then he requested more stand-up. Then he began experimenting with sarcasm. Poorly, but with terrifying sincerity. "I now comprehend irony," he declared deadpan, after telling a joke that involved black holes, bureaucracy, and what might have been a pun. "Do you?" Rhea asked. "No, that was irony." He stared. They burst out laughing. And then, quietly, Zell asked a second question. "Why did you come out here?" Rhea hesitated. So did everyone else. It was Ahmed who answered. "Because we wanted to matter." Zell blinked. Dahlia stepped in. "We've always been small. On Earth, in our system. We fought, we built, we destroyed. Then we looked up and realized the galaxy didn't need us. But we needed it. Jonas nodded. So we built a ship. We left home. We tried to join something bigger. Even if we didn't understand the rules, Rhea finished. Zell looked at each of them, then at the stars. You are dangerous, he said quietly. Not because of your weapons, but because you infect meaning. You make the sacred ridiculous. You mock power. You remix truth. Rhea waited for condemnation. But instead, he said, I believe your laughter is a defense mechanism, not a weapon, but still spreads. He rose. I must report my findings to the tribunal. But understand this, your story is not finished. You may yet belong here. As he laughed, something strange happened. He turned back and smiled. As he boarded his ship, the crew of the Odyssey Dawn watched in silence. Well, Jonas said finally, if he quotes The Simpsons at his next tribunal meeting, we've officially won. Rhea didn't smile. Not quite. But the tightness in her shoulders eased. They were still prisoners, still judged, but they were no longer misunderstood. And that, for now, was enough. They looked up. The stars remained distant, but just a little less silent. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. Of course. Here's Section 3 of the story. We were tried for galactic war crimes. Our response? Laughter, continuing and concluding the current arc while leaving narrative threads open for future exploration. The section remains within the 1,500-word limit and maintains a clear, character-focused structure. The summons came at dawn. A column of light split the horizon, white gold and humming with something deeper than sound. Every blade of luminous grass wilted in response, as if aware of what it signified. The tribunal had decided. Rhea stood at the edge of the ridge, arms folded, shoulders squared, heart somewhere behind her lungs, trying to remember how to breathe. Behind her, the rest of the crew stirred in silence, each person absorbed in their own version of dread. The wait was over. The dropship that descended wasn't elegant like the Siri vessel. It was stark, utilitarian, designed not to impress, but to remind its occupants that everything they were about to face had already been decided by minds leagues above theirs. Inside, the cabin was sterile. No seats, no pleasantries, just walls that pulsed faintly with a language none of them had yet translated, not entirely. The tribunal didn't believe in transparency, only verdicts. As they lifted off, Rhea noticed Zell was not with them. The hearing chamber was not a courtroom, at least not in the way Earth understood it. It was amphitheater-shaped, built from obsidian that drank light and echoed even the most whispered breath. A central disc hovered above an abyss, a platform where the accused would stand, alone, surrounded by representatives from a dozen sentient species, all seated in tiered rows, glowing and humming, pulsing with judgment. They were the virus, and now they were under microscope. Rhea stepped forward as instructed, her boots making a sound that seemed to echo across centuries. Human delegation. Came a voice that was neither vocal nor mechanical. It was thought broadcast directly into their minds. Cold and clinical. You are charged with cultural contamination, linguistic destabilization, mimetic subversion, and the unauthorized anthropomorphization of sacred entities. Dahlia muttered behind her, still can't believe the Shrek thing stuck. Silence. The voice snapped without raising its volume. The circle spun slowly, facing different members of the tribunal as it moved. You are offered no legal defense. You are instead invited to explain. That single word hung in the chamber like a grenade with a missing pin. Rhea took a breath and stepped into the center of the disc. We came here because we were told the galaxy was watching, that there was a place for us in it, that we could contribute. Her voice was even, but the weight of the moment tried to drag it down. Yes, we brought chaos, humor, subversion, but not because we sought to erode what you are. We laugh because that's what we do when we don't understand, or when we fear, or when we hope. A flicker rippled through the observing crowd. Not quite agreement, not quite opposition, just awareness. We're messy, loud, frequently obnoxious, but we aren't trying to corrupt. We're trying to connect. She looked around at the creatures who controlled her fate. You say we anthropomorphize gods. Maybe, but sometimes making a god human helps us talk to it. Sometimes we have to imagine the divine as familiar, or we'll never dare approach it. The silence that followed was heavier than accusation. "Let the record show," came the thought voice again, "that the human response is laughter and metaphor. A ripple of something moved through the tears. Not laughter, but something like its ghost." Then, unexpectedly, a new voice echoed, this time aloud. "I request recognition." All heads turned. From the shadows behind the tiered gallery, Zell emerged, no longer observing, but part of the process. He wore no robe of office, only the neutral black of the tribunal's scientific caste. "The Tsiri do not speak lightly," Zell began, stepping to the edge of the disc. "But I submit this. What humanity brings is not infection. It is friction, discomfort, but also growth." He turned to face the others. "They do not destroy. They remix. Their chaos invites adaptation. Their irreverence challenges doctrine. And yes, they are funny." The words seemed to crash through the chamber like a stray comet. He continued, "In the weeks I spent with them, I learned more about my own perception than I have in decades of study. Their humor is not nihilism. It is armor, and sometimes weapon, but it does not seek conquest. It seeks survival and communion." He stepped back. "They should not be punished. They should be studied, and perhaps invited." Silence again, but it wasn't empty this time. It was active, the kind of quiet that comes before a pivot. One by one, the lights of the tribunal pulsed in slow succession. Agreement. Conditional. Reluctant. But real. Then the voice returned. "Human delegation. You are released from detainment. Your cultural status is reclassified. Volatile adaptive influence. You are permitted to travel within designated systems. Your transmissions will be monitored. You will not be trusted, but you will be watched." Jonas grinned. "We're influencers." Dahlia elbowed him. "Dismissed," said the voice. The platform lowered. Back on Orleans 5, they packed in silence. The mood was complicated. They weren't exonerated. Not really, but they weren't condemned either. Ahmed examined the new flight route. Restricted systems only. No contact with pre-hyperwave civilizations. No memetic exports without review. Jonas sighed. "So no memes." "Monitored memes," Dahlia corrected. "There's a form now." They all groaned. Rhea stood alone near the ramp of the Odyssey Dawn, her eyes scanning the stars once more. "They didn't understand us," she said, not turning. "They still don't," Zell's voice came from behind her. "But they're trying." She looked at him. "You risked a lot back there." "I calculated the risk. Then I threw the calculation away." She smiled. "Very human of you." "I will deny that accusation," he said, his mandibles twitching, a new approximation of a grin. He handed her a small data slate. "A personal archive. My records of our time together. There is a segment you may find amusing." She scrolled through it. The entry read, "Why the banana is inherently political. Jonas Park." She chuckled. "You really did study us." "I intend to continue." Carefully, they stood in silence for a moment. Then Zell extended a hand. Not a gesture his species normally made, but one he had learned. She shook it. When the Odyssey Dawn lifted off, the stars looked the same. But something had changed. They weren't just explorers now. They were part of the conversation. Maybe not liked. Maybe not trusted, but undeniably heard. And somewhere, drifting through the channels of interstellar networks, a recording of humans shouting, "It's more been time," continued to loop, mistranslated, reinterpreted, and perhaps, one day, revered. Because if there was one thing the galaxy had just learned, it was this. Laughter echoed, even in space. Let me know if you'd like an epilogue, follow-up story, or deeper character arcs.